Well, hello everyone, and welcome to day 7 of our July online summit. Welcome, Terry. How are you?
Oh, I am great. It's finally cooled off today here in
That's
Indiana.
awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. And we are waiting for our other co-hosts, Gertrude and Jerry. So
hmm
hopefully they'll be joining us
We may
very
need to
soon.
text Jerry and tell her to come into the studio. She's on the test. Probably there she is. She
There she
heard me.
is.
She
Hi,
heard
Jerry.
me.
Welcome.
Mhm.
Hi. Okay.
How are you?
I'm better.
Good, good.
Good.
So, ladies, did you receive today's program?
I was just looking at, and
Okay.
I was just getting ready to download it.
All right. So, Terry, maybe you can read the first bio and
All right.
introduce our first speaker. Is the video queued up?
No, my video is not queued up.
Okay.
Okay. If you could do that, I'd appreciate that. It
I'll
kept
do
saying
that.
they were working on the videos for some reason.
Okay.
Okay. All righty. So the first one is Bara Man, correct? Okay. So she says, my whole life, I've wanted others to know they belong and feel included, even though I didn't. It didn't stop me from enjoying life. I was extroverted and social and usually had big groups of friends. I became an engineer, moved around, and grew a huge network of friends. But even though I'd go out and have fun with those people, I didn't think I really mattered to them. That didn't feel good, but I didn't know I could or should try to change it. So in 2019, realized that she could do something about it. She launched into a healing journey. It included a lot of twists and turns, such as training as an energy healer and leaving her engineering job. I reevaluated my whole identity, a pretty scary thing to do on your own. Through lots of experimentation, trial and error, and eventually mentorship, I taught myself to reconnect with the intuition I had largely silenced. I was healing myself and feeling connected to everyone and everything. It was beautiful, even when difficult emotions would come up. Vera began unofficially coaching multiple people and became aware that it was something she had been doing her whole life. It was clear that it was something she was meant to keep doing so others could have to go through an arduous and frightening reconnection process on their own. So she started Vera Company, Vera Cole, merging intuitive coaching and energy work and branded herself as a connection coach. I like that. Connection coach. Okay. I present to you, Bear Man.
Hello, Gertrude. Hello, all you beautiful beings. My name is Dara, and I am 34. I am based in the US in California. I think my story starts in Indonesia, where my family moved when I was 2 years old from the US. They're all American. And I was at a really, really small international school. We stayed there for 10 years until I was 12, and it was absolutely incredible. I had an amazing experience. But one of the things that I think got me from it was my community, this expat community I lived in, was very, very small. We had about 26 kids in our whole school from pre-K to 8th grade. So because of that, it was just really, really important that you fit in. If one kid didn't like you, that might meant that you'd have no friends. And that's just not a way that human beings survive very well. So fitting in became really important to me. And when we moved to the US when I was 12, I absolutely didn't. I felt very much like I was the weird kid from Indonesia at my whole middle school. My class was suddenly larger than my entire school had been, and I just really didn't quite fit in. I think I tried different strategies, including drawing attention to the different parts of myself, including masking parts of myself. And eventually, I think where I landed was just kind of keeping a bit of a distance between me and others. Because if I did that, then I couldn't be rejected by them. They didn't even know who I was. So, how could they reject me? I carried that over, I think, subconsciously this whole time into college. I was enjoying life. I was having a pretty good time doing lots of fun things. I had large groups of friends, but I just didn't feel like they actually cared whether or not I was part of that group, um, which I was kind of okay with. I didn't really see another way. And I just thought that's how my existence would be. And it was all fine. Um, Went off with an engineering job after college, moved around the country a bit. And this really started hitting me when I kind of stumbled upon a spiritual journey. That journey and COVID itself accelerated that journey, eventually led me to just getting really, really deep with myself and who I was and the things that were holding me back, led me into energy work and a lot of identity work. And eventually that led to me realizing that helping others experience that sense of belonging is just about the most important thing that I think I can do. I think I've always subconsciously done that. But I was blessed with an opportunity to leave my job in a supported way. And I took that opportunity, and now I work full time to help people develop that sense of belonging, that sense of connection, those relationships that they actually want to be part of, as my full time business. And here I am.
It sounds like you have been on quite a journey. What was it about COVID that helped accelerate and bring you to where you are now?
Well, I think one thing that really helped with COVID was I moved right at the beginning of when the US was acknowledging it. I moved on March 14th from Houston to Southern California, where I didn't know any people in my new office. I moved for work. My first day in the office, they sent everyone to work from home. I was staying in an Airbnb at the time. I hadn't lined up my own place. So I decided and had the privilege of being able to move just 2 hours away in with my parents. So I lived with my parents for 3 months in my mid 30s. And that accelerated a lot of it, I think, because I started discovering, I guess two things are really happening. One is I was getting a lot deeper in my mindfulness journey and meditation because I had all this extra free time. And that's something that I'd been interested in for a couple years. And there were a lot of virtual events. So I was able to interact with people in that space, even though we weren't physically together. And it was a lot easier to do that because I wasn't saying yes to all this stuff I used to say yes to. I was a very social person, so had a really busy schedule, and that took away from me doing a lot of the personal development work, I think. So there was that. I was getting deeper in tune with who I am and with what was going on physically in my body, which would give me a lot of indications sometimes about what was right for me and what wasn't, once I started to become aware of that. And then living with my parents, or my dad in particular, was definitely triggering for me. I think with a lot of us, I had a great relationship with my parents. I think as far as it goes with most people, they're very loving, caring people. I was very fortunate with the family that I was given. But parents tend to trigger us and bring up a lot of difficult emotions. My dad definitely does that for me. So I'd experience every day when I kind of had the bottom floor of the house almost to myself, my own private area, which was really nice. When I'd walk upstairs to go to dinner, I just feel my body tense up. I'd feel myself braced and ready for this fight that I knew was going to happen. So of course it happens because I was prepared for it. And I started diving in deeper to see what was going on there and why I was having this reaction with him. And I was doing that through the meditative work. So in that process, I found that I thought I came to this deep insight that it was a blame that I had for my dad. That was the emotion going on. Then when I got even deeper, it turns out that it was actually this fear that I'd never find a place in the world that I belonged. Which almost seems silly because obviously, now I belong everywhere, we all do belong in most places. But there was this deep rooted fear that was keeping me from connecting with him, from connecting with other people. And I just got to get deeper and deeper through the meditation process. And eventually it started bringing the right people into my life to support me in my healing journey.
They say that in times of crisis, like with the COVID pandemic, we either learn, we are stretched. There's always an underlying reason to everything. I was actually reading a blog post that talked about how the Chinese write the word for crisis with two symbols. One stands for dangerous, the other stands for opportunity. So during this dangerous crisis, a lot of people have found themselves. They have gotten to understand who they truly are. They have been forced to face their demons, so to speak. A lot of relationships have broken down during this time. You seem to have strengthened your resolve in terms of who you are as a person in the world. And it's probably the biggest blessing that could have happened to you, right? So, based on what you've learned up till this point, if I could take you back to post COVID and you could have a conversation with that younger woman who was struggling, who didn't feel she belonged, who felt lost, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you give her based on what you've learned so far?
Wow. I love this question. I think we're talking about before COVID and before I had all of this. I think I would say that I think first I'd tell her that that's what was going on. Hey, you're pushing people away because you are afraid to get close to them. I think that just knowing that, if she'd accept it, would have a huge impact of me seeing that I was creating this world for myself. It wasn't happening to me. I would tell her that she does matter and she belongs, and that some people need her to be exactly who she is, even though it might not look like who she thinks that she's been told she's supposed to be. And I'd say, I guess, it's a similar note, but I think the third nugget would be they don't know how you're supposed to be. They've never seen anyone like you before. So don't let them tell you or try to guide you too much, because they don't have all the answers, and you can only find those within yourself.
That is awesome. Now, your father was your trigger, you said. We have people in our lives who do trigger us. Have you figured out why you have this relationship with him?
Well, as he always likes to remind me, and I try to argue, we are very similar. In some ways, I would like to think I'm much better in many ways. But I think that the people that trigger us are often mirrors for us. So when we get triggered by someone, such as I did with my dad, it's great to ask the question of, okay, what am I seeing here about myself that I don't like? And what I'm going to say right off the bat right now of me answering this question to myself for the first time is there's some stubbornness there. It's funny because I would have said I'm not stubborn, but now when I look back on it, that's, I think, what that wall was and that distance that I'd put between me and other people. It was this stubbornness of, okay, you might not see all of me. Well, then you're not going to get to see any of me. So I think that might be one of the big things for me.
I love that. And it is a journey of discovery, right? And just taking that responsibility that whatever is happening in your life, you are creating it. Nobody else is doing this for you. So you then transitioned from your engineering job, which is so different from what you're doing now. Tell us a little bit about where you are now.
Well, where I am now is, and I left out the gap there. There was a long period of me thinking I was finding my new career, but it turns out I was on this whole spiritual journey. So I was working with different energy healers and things to help me. I was intuitively guided to train under them, which I didn't really expect, especially because I didn't even think I was in touch with my intuition when the whole journey started. But where I am now, after it's about, let's see, almost a year and a half since I left that job. And I started up my own company. It's called Barico, and I am an intuitive life coach and an energy healer. So I work with people, and I'm in the very early stages of building my business, which has been very interesting and taught me a lot about myself and the world. But I work with people largely one-on-one to help them discover who they really are, connect with themselves and that person that's actually deep down instead of that engineer that they've been pretending to be, and to build their better relationships with other people, to overcome their fear of rejection, social anxiety, and those kind of things. And so that's one big part. But then what I really love doing as well is talking about it, speaking about it, writing about it too, because I think there's so much power in these stories. And I love telling my own stories, and I can't wait until I have more client stories to tell too, with their permission, of course, because I think we can learn so much from watching other people's journeys. I love what you are doing here so much for that reason. We just need to see one person who inspires us and makes us think, oh, I never thought of things that way, or oh, that could be me too, or maybe I'm going through that, to change our whole lives.
I love it. You really get the reason why I do what I do. I believe that every single person who crosses my path is a door into a different way of thinking, is a door into another world. And until we start sharing these stories, we can't really change the world. This interview today could be the light at the end of the tunnel for another young woman out there who's feeling lost, who's feeling a sense of isolation and not belonging. And a few things you've said just drop and they get it. that's the power of storytelling. And it's so exciting when I meet women who get it. It's so rare and so unusual. So now, if we can imagine that time is an illusion, that your past, your present, your future all exist in one timeline, and I'm now going to teleport you into the future to the 100-year-old you. And you are sitting in your rocking chair surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, whoever it is who ends up with you at the age of 100. And you could talk to this wise woman who's led you that far. What would you say to her based on how you're living your life now?
Man, I would say thank you. Thank you for all of the difficult parts that have helped me to grow and become who I am at this point in time. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more of those moments in the future. I don't think I'd ask any questions about what those are because I think I'll learn so much from being a surprise. But what I hope I don't need to tell her is that she better still be playing and having fun, because I think that that is a really, really important part of life. And so much growth happens through just following our bliss. And I feel pretty confident that she'll be doing that.
But it sounds like it's an exciting life so far. You are definitely on the path to being her. And the reason why I love to ask that question is because women don't realize that we are born with all the answers. She's already within us and she's already guiding us. But we just have to tune into the essence of who we want to be for her to come stronger and to take us each step of the way. So, is there anything I should have asked you and I didn't? What are your parting thoughts?
Well, I just want to follow up on what you just said. I think that's so beautiful. And I don't know that I've thought about it that way before, but a lot of times I'll go back and talk to my inner child, but I don't think I ever thought about talking to my future self. And that's just such a cool idea that I'm going to play with and incorporate into my practice. Um, I guess the one thing that if I have one thing left to share, I don't know if there's a question I want you to, let's say you ask me that. What's one thing that I want to share with whoever's watching this? It would be, it doesn't have to get bad for you to want it to get better. A lot of the coaches and people I see out there talking, they came from a place of such despair or such misery, and they needed that to catalyze their journey. And at the beginning of my spiritual journey, I kept looking out for this dark night of the soul that I heard about and thinking, oh no, like, is this it? Am I going to be in a period of despair now for the next few months? Because that has to happen. And that never happened to me, and it doesn't have to. As I mentioned earlier, I felt good. I was happy and enjoying life when I decided to embark on this journey of self-discovery and get even deeper and make things better. And I'd love to encourage everyone to always be doing that. I used to tell myself a story of, oh, well, I don't need to go to therapy. I mean, I'm pretty much fine. I'm better, I'm way better than most people. And that was true, but I benefited so much from going and from doing that work anyways. So if there's something you've been thinking about doing to take you to the next level, maybe this is your sign, or maybe you don't even need a sign. Just go for it and just do it. You deserve it.
Fantastic. Farah, thank you so much for coming online today and sprinkling your nuggets of wisdom with our community. These are the magical conversations I love to have every single day, when I meet women who are awake, who are aware, and who are helping others to be awake and aware as well. So keep doing the work. We are all doing the work to enlighten and enrich each other's lives. Thank you so much for this interview. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. The Her Story movement is attracting some phenomenal women. I do believe we are going to change the world one woman at a time, one story at a time. If you're a woman with a story to share, please reach out to me. Go onto the herstorycircle.com website and be a part of this amazing movement. Thank you again, Farah.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm muted.
you're all muted.
We weren't sure who was letting who in, okay? Okay.
So Barra speaks about the opportunity that COVID brought her, and how she became resolute on her purpose and her mission. And we've had wonderful stories since we started this online summit 2020 to the current. Amazing. Even in our last summit, we had amazing stories of women who found themselves or who reconnected with their purpose because of this crisis, this global pandemic. It's just amazing, the stories that are coming out of it. Well, welcome, Gertrude. Thank you for joining us.
I
You're
get
muted.
you.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Unmute.
Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Hello.
I see you.
Yeah.
So, again, another amazing story. I must say, Ruth, you're right. COVID-19 has given people the opportunity to change direction, start something new, not be afraid, and really go for what you want.
Yeah.
And I think Vara's presentation really is a demonstration of that.
Yeah, it is.
She followed her intuition, she followed her gut, and took her life in a completely different direction from being an engineer to a spiritual guru. Is quite fascinating.
Because
Absolutely
that's science and
fascinating.
art, hey?
It's
Like
crazy.
two extreme polars, you know?
Yes. Two opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I think my favorite thing that she said, well, because I relate to it, is that she expected that she had to go through some really horrible thing in order to progress. And I felt the same. I felt like when I started, well, my journey started so long ago now, but I've always felt like I was not having the challenges that, I mean, I listen to some of these stories and I thank my Father in heaven every day that I didn't have to go through those in order to get to where I am now. I went through my own challenges, but it wasn't horrific. Nothing was horrific for me. And she didn't have to either. And that just tells you we can always progress from where we are. No matter where we are now, we need to continue to progress, because once we become stagnant, then we start falling back. And so I really turn my thing off here. So I really think that was in what she said. And I love that she had not reflected on the past, on the future her. And I'm sure if after that interview, she's going to get in touch with her future her, which is, I think that's a very important question that you ask, because some of us don't. I really hope to be 100. I've been, my whole life I always wanted to be 100. My father wanted to be 100, and he didn't make it quite there. But I've always had that dream of being 100 years old and being able to look back. And my posterity is so big that I'm gonna have a lot to see.
I love that. Miss Terry, what was your impression of this last presentation?
Well, um, she'll realize that you're never too old to grow and to make changes in your life, because we've all been doing that, and we're well over 50. And well, not everyone, but
Only me.
I had to retract
Right?
that one.
True.
Not everyone is well over 50. I am well over 50, but you learn from different experiences in your life, and it's like Jerry says, it's always good to move forward and not backward.
Yeah.
You forget about the past. There's this thing about, why is the rear view mirror in a car so small and the windshield in front of you is so big? Because it's important to see where you're going and not looking back to see what has happened. So I got that
Very
from my friend Joel Osteen. So yeah. So that's why it's important to always look forward. You can't change the past, but you
Yeah.
can kind
Wow.
of direct or play an important part in your future on what you've
That
learned.
is so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very,
Okay.
very true. All right. So who do we have next, ladies? I'm busy working on the bios, so I've put
Okay.
Reverend Kelly's in the chat.
In the chat. I see it here in the chat.
Who's lining up the
Is the
video?
video ready?
Is the video ready? I
I will
believe it
line it up.
is. Okay,
I will
you
line
got the
it up.
video? Okay. Then I'll take the bio then. Okay.
And
Reverend Kelly Addison.
keep checking your emails. I'm emailing the bios one by one.
Okay.
Mhm.
Reverend Kelly Addison, cannabis lounge owner at Kelly's Green Lounge, minister of cannabis spirituality, cannabis medical education, culture, located in the quaint town of Orano in Ontario. Kelly's Green Lounge is a cannabis friendly establishment. It's a humble local space where the canna curious, I used to be one of those, to the cannabis concierge, oh wow, alike, can unite in education and in celebration of the plant. It operates with the belief that cannabis, in all of its many forms, can heal the planet. And I truly believe that. Okay, I present to you Reverend Kelly Addison.
Unfortunately, the link says a video is no longer available.
Oh, does it?
That's what it says.
Okay. Let me see what it's going to. It should say the same thing for me, I imagine.
Let me check what's going wrong.
Okay.
So that was Reverend Kelly.
Reverend Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Let me see if it comes up for me before I start to share. It's look like, nope, the video isn't available anymore. That's what I
All
have
right. Give me a
also.
second.
Okay,
Let
will
me
do.
just brainstorm what's going on.
Okay, we'll let you handle that.
Interesting.
Okay. Did we want to move on to, I think Jerry might have the next one up already.
Line up the next one. I'm not sure what's going on with this.
Jean,
Which one do you have next, Terry? Wow.
that's what I'm looking at. I think it's the one I have is not in sequence. Okay. And it is Jean Tien. I think that's the way she's pronouncing it, maybe.
Yeah.
You have that bio already?
No.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Is technology playing us again today?
Oh yeah, it's been doing that all week. It's okay though, but we will.
I have
do it.
Jean's.
You have Jean's bio? Okay,
Do.
great, great. And do I have?
Oh, come on. Okay. Right here. Jean Tien, intuitive, and creator of the success, spelled out SUCCESS method, has over 20 years of in the financial industry. Knowing that she wasn't made for the 9-to-5 grind, Jean began to search for what truly mattered in her life, empowering and supporting others. Executive moms who are also ready to ditch the status quo so that they can live to their fullest potential. There were too many women out there like Jean who played the good girl for far too long, and it was time for them to finally step out into the world and shine. Yet Jean also knew that most of the women were either already far too into their success careers to veer off to the path well traveled and onto the path of self discovery, or they were already working too hard to even consider doing something else. This is why Jean created the success method. It is her proprietary system to help women level their success without the overwhelming of stress. She incorporates this method in her executive workshop curriculum as well as with her VIP coaching clients, where the results have been practically instantaneous. Every woman deserves a chance to experience life to her fullest potential, and this is why she is so excited to share more of this method with her audience. It is my pleasure to introduce Jean Tien.
Again, we have an error. I have an error on my end. I don't know about you ladies.
Yes, I had an error. That's why I sent you a chat.
Oh.
Okay. So let's see. Where are we going from here, ladies? We had one.
We need to do is go ahead and look at all the rest of them, make sure they're there before we do bio.
I'm actually on our YouTube channel
Mm-hmm.
testing all the links, and it's affecting every single video.
Oh, goodness sakes.
So that's never happened before.
Oh, YouTube must be having issues.
Videos are definitely there.
YouTube is having the issue then.
Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube is having an issue today.
Okay.
Let me go on to.
That's very strange. Every one of them, not a single one is coming up. They're all unavailable. So YouTube has a problem. Uploading to YouTube hasn't really. I mean, we've never had this before.
No.
We've never had this issue with YouTube videos. I'll just go in and see if it's all of our videos, because this is very unusual. Ah, there's an error.
I went on and
uploaded may have been set to private by a bug in our system. We're sorry. You can change their visibility back. Okay, there's an error from YouTube. Okay. All right. So which one did you read just now? So I can start changing them in the right order.
Jean Tien.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube just issued a
Message.
message.
Yeah.
That was strange. Okay, so I will go in and sort out Jean first, then I'll go through the list for the rest. Someone.
Did Facebook buy YouTube?
I actually went on
On Facebook, right?
I went on another YouTube video and it did work, but it was out of this system. So it definitely has something to do with our videos.
Okay.
All right. So I've got Jean's. Let me play that one from this end.
Because he likes fixing and broken things.
Who's that?
Zuckerberg.
Oh, Ruth.
Why mess with something that's not broken, right?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. Can you see anything? This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia.
Video details. So we need it.
The presence of yet another fascinating young woman. I am to our tribe. Again in the wrong location, and because I'm not at my new home with a good internet connection, so I'll give you the link. Use that link.
Is it the same link you sent us earlier?
I hope so.
Okay. Let me see if I can, because I had it queued. Let me see if it'll work for me.
Oh, we haven't spoken about your new home.
Oh, yeah. It is absolutely beautiful.
Nope, it's not working with that link.
I'll play it.
Okay.
Did you get the same error, Terry?
Yes. Check back later. Yeah. Okay.
Working for you, Ruth?
Ruth has it. Okay, great. We took the link out of the chat. It's a different link. That's why. It's a different link.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi, my name is Jean Tian, and I am 45 years old. And I'm here to share this story that this pivotal moment in my life happened about when I was 40, about 5 years ago. I woke up every day for a period of time dreading going into work, wondering if there was a better way, that this 9 to 5 hamster wheel of getting up, going to work, and then coming home and taking care of my family, and it goes on repeat. And it felt so burdensome. And it wasn't because I didn't love my family or that I didn't enjoy the career that I was in. It just felt heavy. And it was at that moment, and I remember asking my husband at that point, because he used to drive me to the train station, I remember asking my husband, and I would ask him the same question every day on the way to the train station. There has to be more to life than this. Why can't I seem to find what would light me up? Why can't I seem to be happy? Why can't I seem to find the motivation again? And it was this period of time that was so pivotal because I couldn't imagine continuing to ask these questions every single morning on the way to work. I couldn't imagine what my life would be like for another 30 to 40 years, feeling this way about every single morning, about every single day. Our life wasn't meant to be lived in a way where we could not look forward to the excitement and the adventures that the next day brought. And deep down within, I always knew that I wasn't being utilized to my fullest capacity. I always knew that I was very much underutilized. And at first I thought it was because other people were doing it to me, meaning my manager didn't see my value, or they weren't giving me, the choice projects at work. And so I blamed others often for this lack of fulfillment that I felt within my professional life that ultimately carried over into my personal life. Because despite what they say, as much as you're supposed to separate your personal and your professional life, it's very hard to do that. You're one person, and your energy can very much be influenced by work as well as, the things that are happening at home. So feeling this way, feeling this nagging feeling, this naggingness within me, that there had to be something better and that there was something better and more for me externally, I actually started looking. And I call it actually looking. It's reality. It was more like snooping. I started snooping around the internet, looking at other possibilities, having conversations with other coworkers / friends of mine at the office. And that's how I began to find a whole different level of spirituality that I had never known before. Even though I was a practicing Buddhist at the time, and so that in itself encompasses a heavy level of spirituality, what I hadn't realized was that there was another level of spirituality that was much more practical, that was much more realistic, that when I began integrating it into my life automatically, like it was almost instantaneous, where I began to see a bigger picture of where my life was meant to go, like a bigger purpose for the reason that I am here today. And this job that wasn't lighting me up, it didn't fill up my entire space anymore. It became more of a process, right? It's part of the process that I needed to go through in order to be able to get to the destination, which was not really at the end. That's not really where it was my career that was focused on, or the job at that time. That's not my destination. And what I realized was that the spirituality practice, it wasn't about anybody else. And that was such a pivotal moment in my life as well, because I realized at that point that I was blaming everybody else for the miseries that I felt, the frustration that I felt, for the way that they saw me, when in reality, it was everything that was within me that I was feeling about myself, and that my external world, my managers, my job, my circumstances at home, it was just merely a reflection of the energy that I was carrying within me. And when I say energy, I mean my emotions, my feelings, my thoughts, my judgments about myself that were being manifested or channeled onto other people. And so as I dug in more, what this level of spirituality actually showed me, and the practicalness of it, was that we all benefit from becoming more aware of ourselves, of the energy that we hold through our beliefs, through our actions, through our words. And when we start to be open to change, to making change in our lives, and to really focus on what it is that we want, not what other people want of us, we then can reclaim so much of our own personal power, and things suddenly shift as if by magic for us. It's almost as if, you see in those movies, and I think Doctor Strange and the Marvel movies are a great example, where the reality that they see shift based off of, the magic, quote unquote, that they do. And we look at that and we're like, oh, that's so cool. And what's even cooler is that we're all magicians within ourselves, that we can also create the same shifts within us that will be reflected within our external world. And that's exactly what I've seen happen. And that experience, or these experiences where I've literally been able to change my external world, or the reflection of my external world, in a way that I never thought was possible, has been so exciting. It has me waking up with excitement to see what else is possible. It has me desiring more education, and not necessarily education through school, but more knowledge, more wisdom, more, it has, more curiosity has like pretty much sprouted from within. And it has really changed my life. And this is why I created the success method. And this is how I created the success method, because everything that I've learned, the thousands of dollars I've spent on personal coaching and personal development, what it's ultimately come down to, right, is that when we start to understand and accept who we are on the inside, we can then define what our success looks like. And until we do that, regardless of the material wealth that we accumulate, or regardless of the awards that we receive, whether it's at home or through your career or your job or whatever, that level of abundance that we're looking for, that level of success that we're seeking to experience, will never be enough. And so the success method that I've created is actually a process. It's a proprietary method. It's in the process of being trademarked as well. It is a step-by-step process that I work through with my clients that help them bring themselves back to their authentic selves, to help them and empower them to define what success means for them, so that they no longer act or replicate or feel the need to continue to chase success. Because once you can define success based off of your own desires, right, that what feels aligned for you, the success that comes will just come. It doesn't need to be controlled. It doesn't need to be chased. There's nothing that I think society tells us that we need to do that actually is required for us to be able to achieve the things that we're looking to achieve. Because if we're looking for it, it's looking for us in return. And it's just a matter of making sure that we know what to do with it once we get it. And it's so interesting too, because last night I was actually at an awards event. It wasn't for me, but it was an awards event that I was attending, and it was a beautiful event. And during the event, one of my colleagues and I had previously agreed that he would introduce me to his close friends who are in the media, and he didn't do that, right? So for whatever reason, he didn't. And in the past, before I started this journey, something like that would have really ticked me off. It would have made me angry. It would have made me feel so betrayed and so silly for trusting somebody, right? And it would have been, and I would have interpreted that as another piece of evidence, as another confirmation that people can't be trusted. But I wasn't angry last night. After the work that I'd done, after the creation of the success method, after going through that and working with my clients through that, I left that event so grateful for everything that has happened, for the stories that I had heard that night, for meeting the people that I have. And I wasn't angry. And I thought about it on my way home. And the reason I wasn't angry is because I knew that it wasn't the right time, and that I will get access to, and I will have connections with the media people that I'm looking for in my career, and the other individuals, or reach the goals that I'm looking for. when it's the right time for me. And for whatever reason, I wasn't ready now for it. And I trust with my whole heart that it was always working out for me. And it's so funny because when I first started this journey, I thought that was a whole bunch. I heard this from many coaches, and I thought that that was a whole bunch of cliched BS. Oh, yeah, it works for them, but that's just what they say. And oh, yeah, like, it doesn't really work like that in real life. Like, if you want it, you have to control it. You have to do it yourself for it to be done correctly. You'd be angry because other people has betrayed you once again. But last night, it wasn't like that at all. And that's the beauty of it, is that when we have this definition of success, when we know that what is ours will never disappear, will never, not be ours, we know that everything happens for our benefit. And how do I know that? How is it that it's not delusional for me to think this way? Because if you look back at every single rejection or every single disappointment in your life, and you have that 2020 lens now that you're looking through, you can see how all of those disappointments or those rejections have actually just worked out for you in order for you to be in a better place. That maybe they weren't right for some reason. And yeah, maybe it would have been good or whatever, but what you have now is even better. And that's how I've been able to really truly stay present in the moment, to really truly enjoy the experiences that I have. And this is the beauty that I want to teach and that I want to show others, because we don't, from our perspective, as ambitious, successful women, we don't have to be everything that other people want us to be. We have the right to define that for ourselves. And when we do that, and when we can trust that that is really what will happen, we get to be full. That's where true abundance really comes in. And we no longer have to keep questioning ourselves and keep expending all this energy trying to do stuff that really isn't going to be productive for us. And so that is how I've created the Success Method. That is why I love it. That is why I love what I do, because women are finally able to take their power back, reclaim it, own it, and really stand confidently in front of others, knowing exactly who they are and never feeling lesser than because they're not who other people have told them to be.
Wow. It sounds to me like you have been on quite a journey of self-discovery.
It has been a very interesting journey for sure. Yes.
And a lot of people get caught or stuck on that treadmill of life, just going around like on a hamster wheel,
Mm-hmm.
and not knowing how to get off. What I love about what you said is authenticity. Being truly your authentic self means you are not looking for validation from outside of yourself.
Yeah.
It means that you do have all of the answers to the issues you're going through right now. So if I could take you back, let's imagine that time is an illusion and your past, your present, your future exist in the same timeline. And I'm going to take you back 5 years to when you were in the middle of that struggle, on that hamster wheel, knowing something was off and not happy. If there is a woman who's listening to us right now and is in exactly the same place, what 3 nuggets of wisdom can you share based on what you've learned to this point?
That's a really great question, Gertrude. So let's see. The first one is taking a step back. I think so often we get so caught up in the emotions of it all. And we get so focused on everything that makes us unhappy, which usually is all of the failures, all of the mistakes, all of the emptiness that we haven't filled yet, right? The things that we haven't achieved yet. So the best way to do to stop that feeling and to stop allowing for those emotions to get carried away is to literally pause it and taking a step back. And then number two is that authenticity really requires us as individuals to look within ourselves. And it sounds so cliche, and it's a much more complex process than it sounds too, because I think sometimes people say, yeah, I look within myself and I know myself, but the process is so detailed that the things that we take for granted, the thoughts that we have that just run on automatic, those are the things that we need to start to review again. And things that we believe about ourselves that we look at and the things that we are pursuing within our lives, right? This concept, let's just say, for example, this concept that women have to be married and pregnant, at least within my culture, women have to be married and pregnant with, by the time they're 30s, and if not, there's something wrong with them, or they may have difficulties having babies. All of these ideas are just ideas and stories that have been handed down to them either from their own personal observations of the people around them, or from society, or cultural. And so the things that we take for granted as truth have to be reevaluated again. And what then is that we then have to take a look to see what are we willing to adopt as our own. And it's okay that we believe in the same thing that our society believes. It's okay that we believe in the same thing that, our culture has taught us. But we have to consciously and intentionally make that decision and choose that that's what we're going to own. And then we move forward with it.
You're so right about the pressures women are under in terms of what society expects. Those milestones that by the time you're 30, you should be married, you should have children, you should. But it's actually up to each individual woman to harness that and create what they want. And what I love about your process, somebody said to me yesterday, I was doing another interview and I asked her, how do you find happiness? What is happiness?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you can't find happiness, but you can create it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's amazing.
So a lot of times we're looking outside of ourselves for all of these answers,
mm-hmm.
and yet the answers are really within. And you can
Absolutely.
create what you want. You can create your own future. But women are struggling to do this. Now, I come from a very restrictive culture, which I take you do as well.
Very much so, yes.
And I have always lived outside of the box. And it has caused a lot of trouble and strife because of it with family. So if there is a young woman who is listening to us right now and is in that position where the pressures from family, society, culture are just overwhelming, what advice would you give to navigate out of that space?
That is such a good question. So I would say practically, it's okay to distance yourself from that physically. Whether that's temporary or permanent, that's up to the individual, right? And what they're comfortable doing. But I would say even just a few weeks of time that they can distance themselves from these expectations so that they can use that period of time intentionally and, basically intentionally and diligently, so that they can really look at, okay, so my parents are really focused on me getting married, and and having kids, or that I need to go in to become a doctor or a lawyer, and but I don't know if this is what I want. But that's okay. It's okay not to know what you want. We have people that are adults in their 40s and 50s and 60s that still don't know what they want, and that's men and women. I think it's just part of life. And I think that the advantage to looking at it when you're younger is that you are actually further ahead than the adults that I've actually just mentioned, right? Who haven't ever looked at it, because you're actually taking this time now to look at it, so that the next step that you take is actually an aligned step, rather than something that you're just kind of following along because that's what society's pushing you to do.
I love that. And a beautiful way to end our interview. So my last question is there anything I should have asked you and I didn't?
No, you were amazing, Gertrude. There is one thing that I do want to share, if that's okay. I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, because this was something related to what you asked earlier, which is, give us the 3 nuggets. I think one of the key points too is that society and Disney and whatever else, right? We're meant to be damsels in distress and wait for our prince in shining armor and coming on their white horse to save us from the misery that we feel, and that's what'll make us happy. One thing I learned, and it's something that I think is so powerful for women to take away, is that we are the only ones that can save us. Nobody else can save us. And if we take that step, even if it's to start the way I did it, which is like snooping around to find different things and different options out there, take that next step. Don't wait for somebody to come and hand it to you, because they won't. And even if they do, it might not work for you.
Yes.
So save yourself. Save yourself.
You're your own hero.
Yes, exactly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jean. It was awesome connecting with you. I'll be in touch with you with regards to the reality TV show and give you more information.
Yes.
Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Herstory movement is attracting some phenomenal women with amazing, empowering ideas, so you can step into your own and be and live your authentic self. So this was a beautiful way to start our morning. Have a fantastic day or evening wherever you are in the world. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. And Jean, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye for now, everybody.
Sorry. Technology.
I'm like, what was that?
Wow.
Okay. All right. We're going to hold the fort down here. We're on another theme. Yesterday, it was all about spirituality. Today, it's all about finding oneself and the steps that you're using to get there.
Yes.
And she talks about, how do you define success? Because I know that the world has prescribed success and to us, what the system defines as success. But she says, define your own success in your own terms, and then set out to achieve that.
You know, I have a lot to say about that. My mom left when I was 6, so I didn't have very much of her influence in my early years. But my dad, I had a lot of influence from him. And so at 6 years old, I told him one day I'm going to be a beautician, because my dad was a barber. You know, I used to go to his barbershop, and my very, very first job was as a shoe shine girl in his barbershop. So then I just kind of got the idea at a very young age that I can do anything I want. I just have to say that's what I want, and then I just go do it. And because of it, I've never stayed in a job more than 12 years, just because there was something else that came along that was more attractive to me. Like when I was 16, I opened a wig shop in the back of my dad's barbershop. I was in high school still. So I did that. And then while I was still in high school, I went to beauty school. And then after that, I opened a salon. And 2 years later, I opened another salon. And then when I got to the 10 years after that, I'd already been doing all this for 12 years. I decided
Wow.
I was in a position, I wanted to have another child really bad. And my husband did too. So I got pregnant and I left that profession completely. And I became a mom. And that's during that time, I was with my kids by myself for, I had two more children. And the youngest was a year and a half when we got grandma. And that was a 12-year career. And I mean, I didn't get paid a lot for it, but it was a career. I worked hard. It was a career. And then my husband and I decided to open a business, and of all things, screw painting. And we had zero experience, by the way, but we both had the heart to do it. And we opened that up. It's still open to this day. I don't work there anymore, but when he passed, I sold it to my son. But it became a very successful business. And then when my husband passed away, or I went to sign language school, and I just became an interpreter. And then I was offered a job at the local high school. I worked there 12 years. And then a couple of months before that, my husband had passed away. And one of my good friends decided she wanted to be a flight attendant. I thought, oh, that sounds really fun. And she called me after she got the job. She called me, Jerry, I got the job at JetBlue. I'm moving to New York. I'm so excited. Why don't you join me? Why don't you come? And I'd just been at the high school or the school system for 12 years. And I thought, okay, so I quit that job, or I actually retired. I retired from all these things. And then I applied for the job, and I got the job, and I did that for actually 16 years. And then the cancer made me quit that. But I still have things in my future that I cannot wait to do, and I'm going to do them. And so I think I was one of the lucky ones. Early on, as a 6-year-old child, I never had any of the women are supposed to do this and men are supposed to do that. No one ever told me that. Yep. They also forgot to tell us we were poor. We had no money, but we were the happiest little kids.
Yeah. I was in the same boat, Jerry. I was in the same boat. I didn't know that I was poor. My mother was a single parent home until I had to fill out the parents' confidential statement for finance. When I decided I wanted to go to college at the last minute, my mother, I mean, literally, she almost had a heart attack. She was like, oh my God, that's what you want to do? You didn't tell me that, And so, but I've switched jobs. I didn't quite do 12 years on all of them. It was just, I prayed that the Lord would always keep me open to opportunities. Yeah. And when the opportunity came, I was gone. I didn't care if I didn't have the skills. I remember when the casino boats came to our area, and they needed someone in accounting, and the old Lotus 123. Well, I knew a little bit about computers, but I wasn't quite proficient in Lotus. I applied for the job, and then a course became available prior to my interview, and I took the class.
Oh, nice.
And then I went and got the job.
That's awesome.
You see now. So how we define success is really, really different
It is.
for each of us. Yeah.
And I just happened to marry the right man too. He totally accepted whatever I came up with.
And mine too.
How brained it was.
He's like, whatever makes you happy, just do it. It cuts down on the tension at home, right?
Yes.
If you have a bad day at work.
That also, that kind of relationship, that kind of marriage, that's a successful marriage, isn't it?
Oh yeah. We have a great marriage.
And like support each other and just stand by
it was his idea to open the screw painting business, and I literally thought he was crazy. He had been working for a fabric store or fabric company for years, and all of a sudden they decided he didn't have the right personality for management. He was a district manager because he was too nice to his employees. His employees were all women, 100 women he had working for him. So he didn't know what he was going to do. So his cousin in Texas was doing the screw painting business. And he and his mother flew out to visit the cousin. And he comes back a week later and says, Jerry, we're going to open a business. I'm like, what kind of business are we going to open? He did not work for 9 months. He goes, we're going to open a screw painting business. I said, well, how many screws did you paint while you were in Texas? He goes, none, but I watched. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we borrowed the money from my mother-in-law, and because she was just sure that he was going to be successful at it, which he was extremely successful at it. And he was very shy. So we rented a building. We had a guy build us the machine to rack the screws, and we bought the paint. And now we've opened our doors. So the next day he says, Jerry, we need to go out on a sales call. I found a company that we could paint for, but I don't want to do it myself. He goes, you need to come and do the talking. I said, Steve, I've not even seen how they're done yet. I mean, I don't even know. He goes, and we're both really like almost to a fault honest about stuff. So he says, okay, this is what you need to tell him. This is, we're brand new at it. Absolutely true. We learned from someone that's been doing it for 6 years. Absolutely true. You're our first customer and we'd like to do samples for you. Okay, I could do that. Those were all true statements.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to this guy's office and Steve didn't say a word. I said I did all the talking because I'm the talker. And we walked out of there with a box of 5,000 screws to paint for a sample. So we go back to the shop. We load him by hand because our machine wasn't quite ready. He loads up the spray gun, and he goes, man, I hope I can figure out how to do this. And I'm thinking, what have we done? It costs $10,000. So he sprays it with the primer, and then the next morning we come in, and you have to check it if the paint's stuck, and it did. We were so excited. So we boxed it all up and took it back to the guy. The next day he sent us 100,000 screws, and we just went from there. I mean, it's just, we found a fashion show in Las Vegas 2 weeks later, and within 3 months he was making more than he did after 15 years with the company he was previous.
So I'm not understanding what painted screws are. Different colors or something?
Light switch plates. You know, little screws.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the ones that go in there and they're different colors. Yeah.
Well, my son now owns it, and he's built even more on it than we had, because Steve's been gone for 19 years. But we were painting over 2 million screws a day.
Oh, wow.
A day. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I know Scott does a lot more now because he's got a bigger production than we had when Steve was alive. But we made such good money that our tax man said, you need to add on your house or build a pool or do something like that because you're going to pay so much in taxes. So we did both. It's like, okay. So we added on a room for grandma and put in a pool. So,
oh my goodness.
It's a different business. There's only, in the United States, I believe there's only 7 or 8 different companies that do what we do.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a really rare, it's a hard job. It's heavy.
Well, I guess you have to meet consumer demand. So, you'd be surprised what's out there that you can tap into.
Yeah, wow. Well, we had an opportunity at one point when we'd been open about maybe 4 or 5 years. This guy came to us and wanted us to paint for him light switch plate screws, and he wanted us to paint 25 million. And in order to do it, though, we had to be dishonest. And I was really proud of Steve when he said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to lie and cheat someone else in order to. And the guy said, I'm going to destroy your business. No one in the industry will have anything to do with you again. And that just didn't happen. Yeah. Honesty is so important in business. And
it is. It is.
So I was so proud of him because, men sometimes would rather have the money than, but he was a pretty good guy.
Okay. That was good. Wow. That was good.
So there we are. All right. What happened to Gertrude?
She's still trying to straighten out the rest of the
bio.
videos with YouTube. She has Dr. Carlos
Now,
Water
who's
up
next?
next.
Next on the list? She has him on.
Carlos,
Oh, okay.
and the bio is in the chat.
In the chat.
Yeah,
Okay. It's always hard.
bio's in the chat, and I have the video ready to go.
Okay, let me get back to the chat.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I don't get the chat because I'm on hers. I don't have any of the chat because she had me log in on her account.
Oh, you still should have it though.
I have nothing.
Yeah.
It says
Private.
it says can't post comments. Well, maybe there's a different. Oh, I think that's what I did wrong.
On the right-hand side.
Never mind. I have it.
One of those days.
Okay. It's just one of those days. Anything that can go wrong, we're expecting it to go wrong. So it's okay. But we just keep on moving.
Yeah.
We do.
Carlos Warder, MD, PhD, psychiatrist, and guest lecturer at UCSD Vista, California, United States. Group psychotherapist, author of Therapist MD, Therapist Addiction Detox, Suboxone, 25 books published in 9 languages, specialties, peace study, and psychotherapy, innovative thinking. Wow, this guy is going to be interesting.
Yes. Terry,
Are
do
you
you
ready?
have his video? Mm-hmm.
I do. Let's see if I got it up here right. Okay, it's gonna come in hopefully. You guys are seeing that, right?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this fascinating podcast.
Okay, thank you.
That we are trying to figure out a beautiful title for. My co-host is Dr. Carlos Walter in the United States. Welcome, 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 Carlos. Lovely to see you today.
Likewise.
So in the sharing of the knowledge that is coming through with our podcast, we are brainstorming ideas, and maybe we'll throw it to our audience to also help us come up with a captivating title. Healing Conversations was one title that came up today. Inspirational Conversations might be another. But we will brainstorm and see what spirit is guiding us to put out into the world. What do you think, Carlos?
Yeah, I feel a little disappointed and at the same time inspired. Disappointed because I thought Healing Conversations would be a good name.
Yes.
Because my intention is to be an instrument of healing. And if I express something, I really wanted to help somebody, benefit somebody. It's not me wanting to heal. It's not me wanting to do something. But in the inquiry of who we are, we can have steps. And these steps start with a connection, with a relationship, the loving awareness of the other one. Many times I say in situations like this, when I say goodbye to people that I've never met, I love you. And what does this guy mean by I love you? And I mean that love is not just a feeling or a sentiment. Love is a consciousness of recognizing in you the sameness as in me. Now, we're not the same, but we're equals. And we're equals in front of this tremendous, tremendous universe through which we're traveling. The other day, I was sitting in the front of the house, and there is this tree, this beautiful tree. And instead of looking at the solidity of the tree, I was looking through the space that the branches left. So I saw heaven. No, I saw the sky. And I'm sitting there in a rocking chair, and I feel instantaneously that I am a passenger of this vehicle we call Mother Earth, we call spaceship Earth. But it's not a wild spaceship going anywhere. It's moving at a speed that we could not tolerate if we would just be exposed to it in the translational and in the around the sun, in the orbit. We're going very fast. But we are one body with this planetary system that is the solar system, which is our creator. For so many millennia, people would love the god of sun gods. In Egypt, it was the ultimate, even though Sirius was the star that guided them. Now, if we look at this dynamically and we see that we're traveling, and we're all traveling together, so we have to develop a consciousness of being a species, not a consciousness that you and I are the other. And then we, like somebody was telling me actually today, the best business are weapons. The weapons have started in America in the 19th century, the 1800s. And there was one weapon, a rifle that everybody bought called the Winchester. And I'm not going away from the central theme. But when 1860 or 1840, Winchester started selling these weapons, these rifles, and then he died. And his daughter inherited $3,000 million of 1870. So the amount of money that this killing mentality has produced on Earth, everybody is fighting everybody, and those that sell the weapons benefit financially. They benefit from war, they benefit from killing, they benefit from death. And we need to change that consciousness to find a way that we can benefit each other and ourselves with a life-oriented philosophy, not a war. But for that, we need to realize, as I was saying before, that we're a species. We are maybe the only species that doesn't want to identify with being that. While I'm talking, there are two dogs here sitting with me, and they have no problem in being dogs. I call them dog beings instead of human beings. But people look down at animals, and they look down at animals because they feel that they're higher. And they look down at Oriental people, the West, because they think they're better. They look down at Jews because they have their story. They look down at African American or African in general. And this looking down instead of looking up, this looking down contracts the entropy of life. And here we sit trying to bring the awareness that there is a higher, not getting too sophisticated or spiritually and quotes new age stuff, but there is a higher way of observing from a higher place. The eye that is at the top of the pyramid is really here. And the crown is above our physical head. So when we begin to see the world from there, we see that we're traveling, we're on a journey, and we're all on the same journey. This democratic idea that because I feel something, I am that, is psychotic many times. I'm speaking as a psychiatrist. Because somebody comes in and says, I feel that I'm a bird. Try to fly. You'll collapse. But I feel it, so I'm identified with this. And coming back to center, we need to discover our identity. Human beings have one problem. They've forgotten that they're human beings.
That is an interesting perspective. And that forgetting, I always say that a lot of people sleepwalk through life.
Yeah.
We are sleepwalking, not conscious of who we truly are.
Right.
not even aware of the others that we bump into every single day. And it's when you are fully present in every moment, with every interaction with other human beings, that the magic happens in those moments. A lot of times we meet and your monkey brain is saying, oh, I've got an appointment, I've got to go to the next appointment, or you're thinking about what happened in the office before you left. And there's another human being in front of you, and you fail to connect and be present and look them in the eye and hear what they're actually saying, because your brain is all over the place. So this being the condition of being human, what techniques, what tools, what can we do to be present in every single moment and not miss the magic?
Put the monkey mind to work. And the work that I learned in India in the early stages of meditation was, imagine that this monkey is next to a palm tree, and you tell it to go up and it goes. And then you tell it to go down and it goes. And then you make a simile with yourself, because the monkey mind is not external, it's internal. It's all over, actually. It's in the news for sure. It's in the expectations. It's in the desires. It's in the wants. It's in the insecurities. It's everywhere. So we need to calm down and take our monkey up the palm tree through inspiration, and down the palm tree through expiration. And the monkey begins to become a servant and not a master. And I just changed the frequency of my expression, because as we bring this energy up and allow it to be down, we enter in a different state of awareness. We enter in a state of meditation. And we become, as you said, present in the only thing, space, time, which is an illusion, that we can. And it's called NOW, now.
And there is only now, and now, and now, and now, and now.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've had experiences in my life that I cannot explain how or why things have happened to me. And people say to me, Gertrude, you're born under a lucky star. You're such a lucky person. But I believe you create your luck. It's in who you are being.
Yes.
Every waking moment that the magic unfolds. And I think once you become aware of how you are being, you can then transform how you behave and how you interact and how you bring yourself to the present moment in every interaction as well.
So this is so beautiful to hear you. Why is it beautiful in my perception? Because I am fully with that. So here are two people in two places in the universe, in the world, one in the universe, traveling through the universe and transmitting a similar message. Going back to this naming of healing conversations, I thought of it the other day, because when I do therapy, I don't want to call it therapy. I don't want people having sessions of therapy. So I changed it. I even changed it on my website, healing conversation. Don't expect I'll solve the problems for you. We're going to have a conversation, change the energy, and maybe look at it. Like I had one guy that says, I had so many problems to share with you. And as we're talking, I don't know where they are. The focus was different. Now, we realized by looking at the wonderful internet that a lot of people have had the idea and called their counseling healing conversations. But then you asked me, what would be a good logo? And the first thing that came to mind, and I'm looking at some beautiful trees here as we speak, it was a tree. Because my wife is really teaching me to have respect for the trees. She thinks they're the most evolved beings on the planet. And I began to spend a lot of time with them, and I look at the space in which they are more as the form and what space comes through. They're like windows in the spaceship. And we look and we see that other ones have also put a tree. So this is an idea in the Platonic sense, that idea that's floating around and that we can connect with. Same thing as we can agree or disagree with certain forms of expression, because that's all they are. But at the same time, we need to shift the focus instead of agreeing and disagreeing with the speaker to how does it affect me and what inquiry do I need to do? I already realized that when I breathe in and I breathe out with mindfulness, as they call it today, I calm down. And when I calm down, I feel my heart opening, because it's not the domain of the monkey mind thinking non-original thoughts, because it's only repeating and rearranging what it has heard. But there is such a thing as piercing through, as Krishnamurti would do and say in his talks and in his books. It is not about solving everything. It is about understanding how we have it, how we live it, how we create our own destiny.
I like that. And a lot of times we forget that we are creating our own destiny. We think things are happening just by default. We have no control over what's really going on. And yet we have full control, absolutely full control of everything that is happening in our lives. But I think we don't want to take that responsibility.
Right. Because responsibility has been confused with words such as blame, shame, guilt, even applause. You did well. But that's nothing to do with responsibility. Responsibility starts with the willingness to acknowledge that I am source of everything that's happened to me.
Yes. It's a difficult one to swallow, because it's easier to blame it on external forces and things around us.
Because we're used to have enemies. We think that our survival depends on defeating the other. It's like Cain and Abel. You know, it's in the beginning of the story, of that particular story. Enmity. And enmity leads to war. And ultimately, you know, I was just, before we began, I was being with an old friend of mine. We've been friends 50 years. And talking about this silly way in which President Putin, for his own sake, for his own appearance, for his own image, for his own ego, has stopped the world.
Well, the ego has a way of dominating and taking over. And the more power you have, the more powerful the ego grows. You know, I grew up in Zimbabwe with a dictator president who was my hero as a child. You know, when we were struggling for independence against the British, they went to war and he led that war that won Zimbabwe's independence. And then after one term of being in government, he got a second term, and then he changed the constitution to make himself the life president. Right. And that was the demise of Zimbabwe. We saw our country deteriorate to nothingness. And we watched him
demonstrating what he had learned from our colonial predecessors. And he did exactly what they did to his own people.
Yes.
And brought a country down to its knees that was the breadbasket of Southern Africa. So how do we change this way of being? Especially when it comes to leadership. I've been having these conversations with quite a few people this week that it feels like the world is in a need of an infusion of a nurturing and feminine energy that is missing.
Yeah.
What is the solution?
We have to see that feminine energy these days comes through men and through women.
Yes.
That this right brain, global, holistic, compassionate, loving perception of reality is a function of balance of the two brains that we have. We say, at least scientific research has proven some of it, that the left brain is logical, linear, to the point, and the right brain is all-encompassing, like a mother that holds a baby. And one, we say, is for action, and the other is for compassion. And compassion starts with ourselves. We need to love ourselves, not in an egotistical or narcissistic way. We need to love the life that we have been given. It's so powerful to feel compassion for all the things that go wrong in our choice, in our creation. So instead of being a victim, we transform into being a giver. And the giving starts at home. Charity starts at home. And I don't mean home family. No, it starts at inner home, in the temple of all temples, this body. This body that we subject to so many penalties. I'll give you a personal example. I have a mild COPD, and I never smoked. But I grew up in Santiago, Chile, one of the most polluted places on the planet. So I didn't have vicarious smoke, I had vicarious pollution. Now, why don't we begin to love ourselves to the point of not accepting pollution? And there's so much of it. There is electronic pollution, CO2, other particles, methane, and negative thinking. The biggest pollution is negative thinking. What is that? It is a thought form that affects humanity, bringing us humans to the condition of being stuff, usable stuff, instead of majestic energies. Instead of discovering what we are, we live in the fear of the future, in the fear of what could happen. So we defend ourselves against imaginary things that our neighbor can do to us. And we don't connect like we're connecting today. But people fall into the distrust of opening their hearts to everybody and to anyone. When we do open our hearts, sometimes it hurts. But sometimes, or the majority of the time, there's a lot of joy to be experienced in being a passenger through the galaxy. And the galaxy is moving, which makes me think that it's all one body moving into this expansion of light, of consciousness, of love, of novelty, of familiarity, even because we know that we're going to a place called home. All religions have hijacked this experience, this notion, and sold it to their public as a method of being conditioned. And some people get happy being conditioned. But when we break through the conditioning and we really realize that what being said is true and achievable in our lifetime.
Wow. Now, as you're talking, I am so reminded that the enemy is within.
What enemy?
We're talking about how we look outside of ourselves and try and blame and put responsibility on external forces. And yet everything starts, like you said, at home. It starts within you.
Yeah. But we're in training. We still blame. We still judge. We still evaluate. We still do everything that everybody does. And we need to retrain, if you will, ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not one day. You know, when people come to my seminars for 4 days, I say I only want 4 days, 4 times a year. That's how much attention this work requires.
Mm-hmm.
And what they don't hear is that in between the retreats, you have to do your own work.
Yes.
It's not to be there pushing you, training you, even inspiring you. It's an individual task.
Mm.
And it's a task. You know, it's interesting that the consciousness of we has been the gift of COVID.
Yes.
Because it's affecting everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a king or a dictator or a servant or you are a regular skin encapsulated ego doing a job. Everybody got affected by COVID. And when I realized that I had COVID on the 4th day, I said, I am COVID. I'm COVID to humanity. I'm COVID to everything. I'm COVID to the planet. What does that mean? The thing goes in, the virus goes in and wants to use my DNA to reproduce itself, and it succeeds.
Mm-hmm.
Damages in the meantime, but it wants to live. I want to live, so I have this house. I don't know before this house was built if there wasn't a beautiful tree like 2 trees that I have in front of me.
Mm.
I didn't personally, but somebody did. Some other predator did, like COVID. When I said I am COVID, the symptoms went away.
Hmm. That's interesting. A very, very interesting perspective for sure. So in these healing conversations, I guess the healing comes in the understanding of the universe, understanding the glue that holds everything together. What happens when you have people in your sphere, in your environment who are not ready to listen and to hear? How do you get through to people like that?
Maybe finding out what language they talk or they speak it. And intending, because intention is very powerful, that someplace in the communication, there will be a heart-to-heart moment, which is the only way both to convince. I'm not meaning the convincing of manipulation, but to convince that there's a different viewpoint in reality. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. And
Not-
some people say it wasn't their time. But I think that we're all here at the same time traveling. We are in a long, long story repeating ourselves for millions of years. We say for 10,000 years because there is some data of this agricultural shift that came from hunters to settlers. It's only 10,000 years. Now I say, oh, but it's a long time. But probably with millions of years traveling together. And we still don't realize we're traveling together. And it feel so emotional because if we would be on the same train and the front of the train has no relationship with the back people of the train, let's say, we're still getting to the same place. We're still moving in the same direction. And there are two ways of traveling, awake or asleep. Still get to the same destination. I chose humbly to be awake, but I fall asleep sometimes.
But you're aware you fall asleep sometimes. I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
It's the awareness.
Yeah.
But some
See,
people aren't even aware that they're asleep, and that's where the danger lies.
yeah. And if they have power and they're asleep, they will fulfill their dream.
Mm.
Cost of Ukrainians, Lithuanians, Belarusian in this particular savage case in history, because this is not right. And nobody can do anything. That's our impotence. We can't say, Mr. Putin, your time is over. Go higher. You're the richest man in the world, but don't destroy more people because you're destroying your own people. I mean, there are casualties in the invader also. And there are definitely many more casualties in the invaded ones. And this shows how weak and how poor in power we are. We have no influence. We've done some sanctions, and the sanctions have made Russia richer and us poorer. The West doesn't know how to deal with Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan occupied half of Asia and burned the villages. And Putin is trying to burn the villages. When I hear the news that a missile fell into a wall and only 17 people died, but there are hundreds and hundreds of wounded. Why? Because they went to shop something? That's not right. And the understanding that we're all on the same ship, the understanding that we're all get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
The front might see it before, but once we land, we'll all be together.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So when I said healing conversations, yes, we need to heal ourselves, you and me. But maybe in our dialogues, somebody picks up something and says, I want that too.
Mm-hmm. And the honest truth is, you can only work on yourself and be a source of inspiration for others. And that's what we should be striving towards on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How can I focus on me and inspire others to focus on themselves as well?
Only by doing it.
Mm.
And sometimes I have had rejecting attitudes. You're crazy. Oh, this doesn't happen. Oh, what are you thinking about? And then a few pages in the history of the experience, what we call time, but a new encounter. I am talking about something very concrete, a classmate of mine that totally belittled everything I was saying 50 years ago. And then he had some problems with his wife, and they came to a retreat. And I'm not going to say the exact word that he says at the end because it's ping, ping, ping. We don't say those words on television or on podcasts or things like that. But this works. Thank you. You still couldn't let go of the previous idea that this wasn't something I excels wonderful, but it helped. It worked. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't care if it's called high or low. I really don't care. Because, being 75 has an advantage. A physical, chemical, material advantage. Action in the corpus callosum, in the brain, of fibers that connect the right with the left increases with age in the brain.
Okay.
So we're a little more meditative, a little more calm, a little more balanced, a little bit, because the connectedness within is taking place at a higher level than when somebody's 40. And this is proven. There's research on this in England, that more fibers get activated in the crossing over from one brain to the other.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome. So hopefully with time, we will all gain that level of wisdom. In the meantime, just being aware of how you are being in every waking moment and remembering that there is only now and now. Absolutely. And now and now.
Absolutely. I told you once about my experience when I was 14. I was at a clock and I stayed present in the eternal now as I was seeing chronological time shifting. And I decided to live outside of time. And I think that I've lived outside of time this life.
Well, a beautiful lesson for us to all take away. Living outside of time. Absolutely wonderful. So we have to come up with a name for this podcast. It could be Healing Spiritual Conversations. We will sleep on it and come back to all of you with a title the next time we connect. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Dr. Carlos, thank you again for reconnecting with me today.
Thank you so much. It's always an inspiration. It's always a pleasure. And it's love, because it's a recognition of the same concept. One as the other, others as the other. And that is love.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Well, ladies.
That was so fascinating that I looked him up, and he has some retreats in California coming up. He has one in the end of this month, one in September. So I may just sign me and Joseph up to go that. Because I think my most impressive thing that I learned from him, which I already knew, but the fact that he's a man and he said it, is that men who connect with their feminine side do much better than men who don't. You know, like we all have a male and a female side to us, which I have a lot of logic for a female, more logic than a lot of females have. But my husband is now at this stage of his life, he's tapped into his feminine side, which has mellowed him out a lot and has made him a lot easier to deal with. And I think that's so important for people to, because we have to recognize each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We have to recognize each other's strengths and and build ourselves on what the other one's strengths are, not on what their faults are. Because I think a lot of people, when they get in, especially in marriages, they get into wanting to be right, always wanting to be right, and so the other one has to be wrong if they're wrong, if they're the one that's right.
Mm-hmm.
What about if we were both right? And what about we communicated? I was fascinated with that whole interview.
It was very fascinating.
Yeah.
And he spoke about when you talking to somebody and you talking from a higher place,
Yes.
looking down on the others,
Oh,
and
that was fabulous.
yeah,
That was
it just
fabulous.
changes.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Wow, I love
again, I'm allergic to dogs and cats. I don't
it.
have one, but if I see someone mistreat a dog or any animal, it makes me crazy because it's like they're beings. I like that he called them dog beings. Um, they're beings who are loved by God like we are,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I get the same way when so if I see someone physically hurting their child,
Mhm.
it makes me crazy. I'm grateful that I have this huge family. Nobody does that to their kids, and
Wow.
yeah, I'm so grateful for that because that should not
Okay. Wow. That's awesome, Jerry. You've got so from the way you talk about the family, I think you've been very fortunate that both your husbands
happen.
um are the other one was a good man, and Joseph is a wonderful being, a
Yes,
wonderful human being.
he
You've
is.
been very fortunate, you know.
I have. Sometimes I have to pinch myself.
All right. So what we had Denise, what happened to her? She
Uh,
was in the studio.
oh, she was.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
I don't
I,
know. Yeah.
She did. She did leave something in the chat.
yes, she did. She
Yeah.
says, I
She
love
did.
people who love books. And she
Yes.
says, fear is the enemy.
Yeah.
Faith in the God we are is the answer.
Yeah. Well, it's too
Wow.
bad she didn't stay with us. That would have been nice.
Oh,
Mm.
sorry. Sorry.
Okay, so who is next on our schedule?
Okay. We're supposed to have. You received the email and
Mm-hmm.
the video, the bio. Gerald,
For who?
you're on next. Kelly
Kelly. Okay, I did.
O'Hara from
I just have to
yesterday. Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you need us to cue the video for you.
Kelly O'Hara. Yes, please. Okay.
Okay, I gotta find it.
Kelly O'Hara says we help leaders, coaches, authors, and speakers find speaking opportunities in their market. We get your book on radio, podcasts, virtual summits, networking, and TEDx events. We provide leads, tools, resources. Trabuca, Trabuco Canyon, the Trabuco, California Canyon, in the United States. Uh, we help, and then she says the same. We help speakers, business. It's all the same things I just read. Okay, I guess that is the bio.
Bye.
It's my pleasure to present Kelly O'Hara.
Let's see if it's gonna come up because it didn't come up the first time I tried. Nope. It's saying that video is not available.
Oh,
That's one that didn't get corrected, evidently.
I read that
Okay.
one yesterday and didn't get to hear it either. Well,
Yeah.
we'll
Do
look.
you?
I'll play it.
You
Oh,
have it? Okay.
you have it? Oh, wonderful.
It's not coming up from the email.
All right.
Okay. That'll be good. Hopefully she changed it. There we go.
Hi, my name's Kelly O'Hara, and I am 65 years old this month. I live in Rancho Santa Margarita in Orange County in beautiful Southern California. I feel blessed to be a guest on Herstory. Thank you so much, Gertrude. And once invited, I really had to look at my own story and the stories I've chosen and how that's played out for me and how it applies even now. So I thought it would be very apropos to share about the elephant that's been in my living room. And it was always one thing: public speaking. I've been known to be quite courageous in many areas of life. I am a very strong, passionate, independent woman who's learned the value of deep, committed partnerships. I've also been strong in my ability to create and attract what I want for myself. I've been fearless in business and taken major risks. But I have had one pervasive, deep-seated fear that has kept coming up for me. And it really forced me to have to look closely and figure it out. Why was this in my story? Why has this been such a dreaded, sometimes even paralyzing fear for me? And the second question comes right after it: why does this keep coming after me? Because I'm an adult, I get to choose. Why is this constantly rearing its ugly head? I'll get back to that one. So when I thought about it, in my deep assessment, I decided it was all my mother's fault. And my unlikely hero's journey starts with a 4-year-old girl who was as adorable as 4-year-olds always are. And, but was very shy, very intuitive, an observer of people, smart, obviously this was my assessment, but good-natured, but not a performer at heart. In fact, I danced, played, I played instruments, there were a lot of things I loved to do, but I just didn't need the crowd. I jumped horses, a lot of things I did, but I really liked the loner stuff more, so I guess that's just how I made up. But I'll tell you how it all started for me, and again I go back to, it's my mother. It was a wedding. It was a major production. It was in a massive cathedral. It was a Roman Catholic mass for my cousin Sandra. I remember she had, I think she had 8 bridesmaids and 8 groomsmen were there, and both had huge families on both sides, and all their friends were in attendance, and it was just a full house. And it was decided that I would be a flower girl with my cousin Sherry, who is senior to me by about 4 days, I think. And our job was that we were going to walk up the aisle sprinkling flower petals for my cousin, the bride, to walk through on her life-changing approach to the altar. So the scene is set, and the music was playing, the organist was playing, and suddenly the music stopped, and the priest walked out to the landing, and he made some kind of announcement. And at that moment, the entire room stood up and turned around to look down this long aisle at these 2 darling girls, and I froze. I was like a deer caught in headlights. I reached to the side of the pew, and I just refused to move. And I remember holding my breath, and the air was so still. And Sherry, my traitorous 4-year-old cousin, she just bounced up the aisle without me, in perfect harmony with the music. And I didn't. I just felt paralyzed. And then my mom, who I promise you was a really wonderful mother, and we were very close to the day she died. But at that moment, she came up to me and she pinched me under my arm, and she said, "You will move. You can embarrass yourself, but you will not make me embarrassed me. And I don't remember anything after that. I don't, it's a complete blank. The day is just gone from my memory. I don't know if I actually walked up the aisle. I don't know. I don't know if I cried. I don't know what happened because it was that traumatizing to me. Is that I just kind of blocked that from my memory. And my dread of public appearances just didn't end there. My parents, they divorced when I was very young. I was about 3, and they were both very successful entrepreneurs in their own right. And they managed to create interesting and profitable businesses, and they loved their work, and they were very high profile in their chosen professions. And so my experience with the spotlight, it had begun. It continued throughout my childhood. For instance, my mom, she was a couturier, and she produced events, and she took major designers' lines around the world. And with me in tow, I would be pushed out onto the runway for some designer who created a final children's look and just needed a little girl with a long ponytail to set off their look. So, there were photo shoots and runways and modeling jobs and, lights flashing, and I just hated all of it. I just didn't enjoy the cameras and the attention. I just didn't like it. So all the while, all I wanted was the safety of quiet. I loved to read. I loved art and coloring books. And give me a set of Legos and Lincoln Logs, and I could play for hours by myself in the room on the floor, building elaborate, cities and towns. And I really was very, very good at entertaining myself. And once I got old enough that I could refuse participation gracefully in these public spectacles, I was off the hook and I was happy. And in my mind, it was over. So I set my sight on running things. I like to create things, I like to run them, and I love helping other people get into the limelight. I was determined that I would call the shots and I would assign the tasks, and I would not be in the spotlight. And now let's talk about the universe. She is a fabulous one, the great sacred unknown. And it's got, a very sensitive humor. That's all I can tell you. And I can tell you this, there's no straight line to success. It's got a lot of great, wonderful side streets that you just can't help but go down and check out the view. And it seemed that destiny just kept putting me to the test, because every street I took, every road I took, every job I accepted, every project I expected, every business I created, every time it ended up being my responsibility to deliver the message. Whether it was an event or a launch or a strategic alliance or a charity event, it always required that I had to do some time on the stage. And I've had the opportunity to speak on some major stages and at several worldwide events. And though it's always turned out well and it's been a good experience, I can tell you quite honestly that my anxiety ran insanely high. And I still just have to do it. But I can't tell you that it's always comfortable. And even now, in my current work, it is not lost on me that I have joined forces with Speakertunity, which provides speakers and authors and coaches and leaders and entrepreneurs with all direct access and resources and tools and support to get booked on stages all over North America. Yes, I love helping speakers find and land more stages. Yet once again, here I am, back on a stage. So do you think I've conquered it? My fear of public speaking? No, not 100%. Sometimes I've wrestled it to the ground, and sometimes it's wrestled me. But I think I've managed to shrink its looming presence and paralysis, at least to the point that it doesn't stop me. I just think like Nike, just do it. My logic tells me there are bigger things to accomplish in this moment. My fear tells me I may not be comfortable with it, but it's like Nike, just do it anyway. But my soul tells me it's going to be okay, no matter what. Just show up, be myself, and those that this message resonates with will get it. And I'll have to forget the rest. And if I fail in that, I forget maybe a portion of it, or most critical, I forget a name or a fact. Oh, well, There you go. Let my perfectionist scream from the rafters that I'm still standing. I showed up. And in the end, just gets down to a decision. Is the benefit going to outweigh the risk of exposure or failure or the pain of the dread prior to the event? It always does. So if any of you are minimally or excruciatingly afraid of public speaking, here are my best tricks and tools of the trade that I've used to help me manage my fears. So the first one I'd say is, and it's a big one, it's not about me. If it just stays in the front of my mind that it's really about not about me, and it never was. It's just about sharing good information. And the second one is I keep my intentions right beside me. I speak, even though I'm not immediately in my comfort zone, I keep in the top of my mind that I'm here to give, whether it's information or experience or an opportunity. I'm here just sharing. I just need to get nervous out of the way and be authentic. If you're real, people will feel it and you will resonate with them every time. And the audience really ultimately for you. They aren't listening, hoping that you're going to, make a mistake or fall on your face. In fact, most of them are appreciative that it's not them and it's that you're up there. And if you make them feel comfortable, that's an amazing shared experience. But sometimes even better when you make a mistake and you laugh about it, and then everyone else gets to laugh. And there is no better bonding experience than when you crack up and the room is with you. I'll tell you my mantra that I use every morning before I do anything, but most especially before I walk out on a stage. I say to myself, the universe is conspiring in my favor. I don't have all my answers all the time, but the universe does. And if I continue to be offered these opportunities to speak, then there's a reason that may be way beyond my willies. Oh my gosh, what if I forget the names or my seventh item in my talking points or the host's name? God forbid, what if? Well, it's just stuff. Like the headlines of a newspaper. Today's news is tomorrow's birdcage linings. Keep it in perspective. This moment too shall pass. You'll survive, just hold on and keep your sense of humor. And ultimately, you're just not that important. It's your message. It's what you've come to give them. I love Maya Angelou's perspective. She said, they'll forget about what you said, but they'll never forget about the way you made them feel. Just share your story from your heart and it will land with who it's supposed to. So now, for us introverts and newbies, if public speaking is really so painful, why do it? What possible value could offset the misery of having to face that fear? Well, if you have a business or a book or a message that you feel that is yours to give, then there's nothing like public speaking to make it happen. It will catapult you in a way like no other modality will. It's proven. Nothing will ramp up your business, your authority, your revenue faster than getting on stage. It's that unique opportunity for you to let people in your audience feel you and get their own sense of you before they book a call with you. And it just builds the know, like, and trust factor exponentially. And today you can do it in so many ways. There's so many stages and platforms, and they're just waiting for you. At Speakertunity, we offer 130,000 stages on every platform and market, just waiting for you, whether you want live or virtual events, radio shows, podcasts, TEDx events, networking groups. I mean, the world is waiting for speakers who want to speak. So you can stick your toe in the water and get comfortable by getting into networking groups and breakout rooms. Wonderful, because it's just a small group and it feels very personal. And local break rooms are wonderful and very forgiving. You can get on a summit and give a 30-minute presentation that you've recorded instead of doing it live until you're ready to go live. And you might find that you love live. You can get with wonderful supportive hosts like Gertrude, who will create a warm and supportive atmosphere so you can have more intimate stage experience just like this one. And the gift of Zoom, it cannot be underestimated. It allows you to touch so many people and then invite them into your room to have a more in-depth conversation. Think about it. This catastrophic pandemic has been a huge global challenge and devastating in many ways, but there's always a rainbow after the storm. And this pandemic has brought us together in ways that nothing else could have. And Zoom is one of the most incredible vehicles and opportunities that is such a gift, and we need it now more than ever. There's a lot of work to do at this time, and so many brilliant people are coming up with fabulous strategies and connective opportunities so we can talk together and work on it all together. And visibility is essential and easier to get now than it's ever been. I'll be doing a workshop uh, next month about visibility with Gertrude, and I'm really excited to share all the ways you can get yourself out there and be heard. And I'll be bringing gifts with me, so be sure to stop by. So all it takes is a little public speaking. So I ask you, if not now, when? I want to thank you, Gertrude, from the bottom of my heart. It's been a privilege to be part of Herstory. I'm really glad I got to tell you mine. And to all the aspiring speakers out there, I look forward to seeing you on your next stage. Thank you, everyone.
So dip your tail in cold water. I like that saying. Get on that stage.
I can't
Yes.
imagine someone being as shy as she was, turning out as outgoing as she has become. That's
Yeah.
really an accomplishment.
It's amazing, I think I began speaking only because I majored in education. And so it allowed me to get the confidence I needed because I was somewhat of a quiet, introverted person as I was growing up, believe that or not. And and so you learn that you have to speak. My mother always said, you can't live in this world by yourself. You need to speak to people. You need to speak to people. You need to talk to people. And that's how you build up your confidence because, what I cared about joining in a conversation, sometimes I would just sit and listen most of the time. But now I can talk about just about anything and everything. So I think being an educator has helped me a lot to speak.
Yeah. Wow. And Zoom has really helped, hey?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you are in the room together with people, but not in the same in the room. You know what I mean? It's virtual.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
it took away. It takes away the nervousness or the anxiety of speaking before people.
it
Yeah.
really does. It really does.
In my role as a sign language interpreter for all those years, I worked in the field for, other than school, for about 20 years. And I normally interpreted one-on-one, like there were medical appointments, the patient was my client, and then the doctor. And so I was never nervous doing that. And then one time they asked me to interpret in front of 5,000 people. My knees were knocking so hard. And I think I did a pretty good job. I mean, gained more confidence after that, and had the opportunity one time to interpret for a motivational speaker at a high school. And he said to me, "I don't think you're going to be able to keep up with me." I said, "Oh yes, I will." So I stood right next to him, and my body moved as he moved. He would, and I did the same thing as I was interpreting. And he stopped me and goes, "You can keep up with me." But it took me a long time to gain the confidence to be able to do that. It's not something I ever thought I'd be doing in a big group, but It sure was fun once I got there, and once I figured out that, hey, I didn't die. Nobody threw tomatoes at me.
Yeah.
But I thought they were going to throw tomatoes, but you know, yeah, I know that people can get past that fear. And the first time I spoke at Herstory conference in Las Vegas, I was pretty nervous. That was my first time.
Yeah, I can't wait till I get to Australia. I'm like, oh.
Oh, I think having this experience, you won't have any trial with that at all. Because I think once we get to a point where we realize that there's nothing to fear, then and you do so well on here. I think doing well on here.
Thank you.
Will make it once you get on a stage, you're going to be going,
yeah,
this is fun. Now everybody's in the room. I've noticed for me, I was a couple of weeks ago, I got to do a book review with a large group.
Mm-hmm.
I was having a blast.
Wow.
It was so much fun. I was like, oh, can I do that again?
And I used to be at one of my jobs as the dean, the academic dean. And so therefore I had to, play out all the rules at orientation and explain the dress codes and do all of that stuff. And then we tacked on a motivation piece as one of our courses, And so I had to come up with creative ways in which to get things across. And one time we were talking about yourself. And so I played Michael Jackson, the mirror. Who do you see in the mirror?
Oh, yeah.
And then I did something with Patti LaBelle's song, and because I love music, so it always got the message across. And then I would, there was this one thing I always say, she's got the answers, she's the wizard, that kind of thing. I kind of played on that a little bit during some of my presentations. So I've learned to be an actress, when I need to.
You kind of have to. That first time I spoke, I was like, in fact, I was so nervous that I was talking about my mother leaving, which was I was a 6-year-old. And I reverted back to being 6 years old, and I was rubbing my skirt, my dress through my fingers, like a comfort blanket or and then I realized about halfway through, oh, I need to open up a little bit.
I talk with my hands. I walk, So
yeah, I am getting better at that. But that first time I was just like, yeah.
So you realize that body language is part of the presentation.
I'm a sign language interpreter.
It's
sign
very
language,
important.
use your whole body. That's what made me. I mean, I realized that rubbing my skirt was telling people I was afraid.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute here.
I need to convey a different message.
Yeah.
So, clever for a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Ruth, it's kind of late there for you, isn't it?
Yes, I was just about to say, ladies, I'm wilting. Will I be excused?
Well, because we don't really have all of the bios. The
email.
I think Carmen's.
And I have
two Carmen's.
Okay, you have Carmen's bio.
It's the same Carmen. Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's the one from yesterday.
She has 2 last names.
That was the one that was for the Yes program. Okay. Yes. Now let's see if I have the video. That's the hard part. I'm not sure that I have a video. So
is a link at the top of the bio?
I'm actually using yesterday's bio. Because we had it from yesterday.
I don't know which is her current last name, Carmen or David. She has 2 last names.
James or
Carmen Darville. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. Use Carmen Darville. because
Dewani?
that's what I have.
Dewani. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to see if I can pull this up.
Oh, wait.
And this, I'm
Okay.
talking about pulling up the
The
Yes.
video.
video. Let me just put it in here, working from too many devices as usual.
Yeah, at the top of the. It does have.
Yeah, I see it, but that's on my phone.
Well, you should have got it in the email as well.
Yeah,
I
it was
put it
on
in
my
the
phone.
chat.
And you know what? I am going to go to my email. I can go to my email.
I put it in the chat. It's in the chat.
It is in the chat.
The link.
Yeah, I put the link in the chat just
Okay.
now.
Okay, there you go. I'll go ahead and start doing her bio. And Ruth, you'll probably be asleep by the time we get done with this. This speaker. You have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good day,
ladies.
Because this will. Well, I want to recommend. Say this is the last one. It's like 6:32. We've had a long day.
Okay.
What do you think? Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Chief of Staff, member of Yes Prep team since 2015. Carmen is originally from right outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and found her way to Yes Prep in July of 2015 as the director of school operations. Most recently, she has served as a managing director of talent support.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Remaining focused on the organization's traditional human resource functions while problem solving cross-functionality on the variety of projects that intersected with the talent work team. Prior to Yes, she served in Texas 2 large ISDs, leading aggressive human resource turnaround efforts. Her passion for the community we serve has fueled important organizational change. Prior to that, she was a recruitment director for the Teach for America in Chicago. Carmen graduated from Case Western University with a degree in English literature and communication sciences, and received her graduate degree from University of Texas in Austin in educational leadership. Besides being the avid support fan, Carmen and her husband, Chris, are the parents of 2 kiddos, Rowan Axel and Cooper Phoenix. It is my pleasure to present Carmen.
Okay, you guys seeing it?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
My name is Carmen Darville, and I'm the Chief of Staff at Yes Prep Public Schools. Yes Prep Public Schools is a public school system. We are part of the Charter Network, and our mission is that we will empower all Houston students to succeed in college and to pursue lives of opportunity. So we take students most typically from low-income communities and ensure they have the same access to an excellent education that is free and rigorous to prepare them for college or career or whatever life path they choose. So in my role as a chief of staff, I actually have quite a non-traditional chief of staff role, and I would describe myself as a utility player. I'm the hub for all things risk management, cross-functional collaboration, and supporting my leader, Mark DeBella, who is the Chief Executive Officer of our organization. I lead a variety of departments for the organization, from analytics to communications, marketing, federal and state compliance and grants, advocacy. So I have a little bit of everything in my functional area, but I feel like my truest work of Chief of Staff is to ensure that our staff is set up to be successful so that we can best serve our students and families and deliver on our promise to provide an excellent education. Well, what makes my school or our school's unique. So we have over 25 schools, and we started at the middle school level. So as you might imagine, most schools start with the early years, 5 and 6 years old. And we started with the hardest years. If you can remember what it was like to go through puberty, struggle through middle school, and figure out exactly who you wanted to be, that's where our organization started, because we felt like the toughest work of helping students at the middle school level figure out what they wanted and how to get comfortable in their own skin was exactly where we needed to do this work. And so it's really difficult to find rigorous options for education at the middle school level. So we began at 6th grade and grew our grade level. So then added 7th, 8th, all the way into high school. And we were focused solely on getting our kids to and through college. And then we realized a couple of years ago that our kids were coming in, our students were coming into 6th grade, multiple grade levels behind. And what we could do is start earlier to close that gap. So while we still need great options for middle schools, what would it mean to allow their siblings to not get to 6th grade, multiple grade levels behind? And so 2 years ago, we launched elementary schools right in the middle of a pandemic, opening grades as early as pre-K to begin serving all families to ensure that they had great options for education, even if their local school did not provide great options for them. So when I think of my proudest life or business accomplishment, I first reflect on I have not had a traditional path to my career. The path has not been straight. My life path has not been straight. I am the type of person who has always run towards the fire and not away from it. And so when I think about risk management and like my biggest accomplishment, I really think about leading our organization through the pandemic. We decided that safety was our greatest priority. And so miraculously, we didn't lose a single student or staff member over the course of the last 2 years as we worked tirelessly to collaborate with teammates, create systems, processes that didn't exist, advocate for access to vaccines to get our teachers in earlier groups, providing PPE for our educators. And we worked around the clocks for months to secure appointments. I remember getting up in the middle of the night and logging into Walmart and changing my time zone so I could have East Coast access to vaccines on behalf of our staff, requesting testing materials for anyone who desired to receive it so they could test on site at work, so that they could feel safe and not exposing their students. And we ended up creating a whole infrastructure for staff and their families to create access. I remember getting emails from staff members saying like, Carmen, based on the systems that you put in place, not only did I get vaccinated, but so did my mom, so did my vulnerable grandmother and my siblings. And I really did it all in the name of student achievement. How can you learn when you don't feel safe? And so it is my greatest accomplishment because I know our students, like, education is the path that they want to take as a great equalizer. And so what my job is to clear the path to the greatest rigorous learning continuity despite the circumstances. And so many of our students would not have had access to meals, to reliable internet, or even to just strong teaching and learning if we had not kept our doors open. And it wouldn't have been possible to do so without first supporting, equipping, and protecting our staff. And so, as so many professionals do, especially women and people of color, I doubted myself for far too long in terms of what my capabilities were. Through the pandemic, I also launched a business. And I just knew I had so much more to give to the people around me. And I think what forced me to behave differently was setting my self-doubt aside and following the advice I give to so many others to become the biggest, best version of myself to play big for people around me. And so the choice to do so and to really minimize my own self-doubt to support both my system and my community made the greatest difference. And I think I'm just so proud of the courageousness of our leaders and principals tackling the most difficult problems. And I just wanted to be a facilitator of their success. So while there have been victories throughout my life and career, I've also experienced great challenge and opposition. And one of the things that has come to mind is when I decided to relocate cities. I was leaving a job, I was pregnant, I had our 1-year-old daughter, and my husband was just starting his career in another city. So I moved separately, and moved in with a family friend and restarted my career in a completely new area as a director of school operations. I took a pay cut that reduced my pay by 50% of my previous earnings. We had to cut our budget to match my reduced income. And I was determined to rebuild in a new field to expand my view of what education could look like and could be across functional areas. I knew at that time that even though we had less in our bank account, that I needed to live my values, and the money that we did have available needed to go to our children's education. I started that new job 8 months pregnant in a new functional area with a toddler, living apart from my spouse, hopping from house to house until we secured an apartment. And then over the course of the year, I had a baby. I stepped away from work for approximately 6 weeks. And when I returned, I had a fire that I had never felt before. I received 2 promotions at work. We found my husband a job and he relocated, finding another opportunity. And I overcame the challenges by leaning into my network, living with less to prioritize education, and not making excuses for myself and my desire to maneuver through education in a new way. Over the course of a 2-year period, I was promoted 4 times and earned a job offer for my current role as chief of staff. While that period of life presented so many challenges, it really built my empathy and understanding for both our families and students and so many other leaders whose path is not straight and is riddled with challenges along the way, but it is their values alignment and commitment that will get them opportunity after opportunity to rise again. It is exciting and humbling to have an opportunity to even share advice with other Herstory Circle audience members. But when I think about what's front of mind for me, and for several years, I led a team just of women who were incredibly aspirational and gifted and, oh my goodness, so talented. And when I think of the group I've been privileged to lead with, alongside, or be out in front for, I'm just reminded about how our margin for error as women is so incredibly narrow, but repeatedly we find a way to rise and rise again. We're moms, we're wives, we're significant others. We are leaders of team, makers of teams, leaders of leaders, entrepreneurs. And so much of it, we lead change and excellence at scale. It lives with us. If you look at any element of history or any family group, we know women lead villages made up of each other. We raise children, we build families, and it is one another that actually sustains us as we continue to disrupt and elevate our respective industries. So keep in mind, I know it gets tiring and it feels like the weight of the world can be carried on our shoulders, but together we can do so much despite the little bit of room we're often left. So when I think of women and how they approach their careers, so often I hear from women across industries that they're not sure how to make the greatest impact or what comes next, or even what's a part of their 5-year plan. And when I think of my own journey, I never said to myself, when I grow up, I want to be a chief of staff. But I'm called for impact, as so many other women leaders that I talk to are, regardless of industry, point in career. It's put me in, coach, put me where you need me. And especially over the past couple of years, education has taken a hit. We know education was not prepared to take on the weight of a pandemic, as so many other industries were not as well. But when you think about what contribution you can make, you can lock arms with people in education to offer support, offer encouragement, because we know what our kids need to be successful and to have opportunities as so many of us have been afforded. And then outside of education, Just squarely center yourself at a point of impact. Consider the other women around you and what they may not yet see in themselves, and encourage them and be encouraged about what you can accomplish when you lock arms with other people and take a panoramic view for the change and disruption that is needed across industries to set other women up for success. So I have a daughter whose first name is Rowan, Rowan, and she carries my maiden name. When we decided to have children, we committed that regardless, my last name, if I was going to take his name, would bear the name that I carried throughout my life, which is Rowan. And so our daughter has just like such an incredibly important role in my approach to doing this work. And I'll never forget, I was in my room. Anyone who knows me knows I always have my computer around, and being in risk management work, it's important to be available. And I was plugging away on my bedroom floor with my computer in my lap. And Rowan came in there and she said, "Why are you always working? Like, why are you always doing work when you come home?" And I said, "Hey, you know all the opportunities that you have available to you? I just want other kids who look like us and don't look like us, but have a different zip code to have those same opportunities." And so sometimes I really struggle when those students or families need something from me and it comes through at all hours. And she just kind of sat with it. She was 7 at the time. She just turned 8. And I could just feel her processing the information that I shared with her. But like, any mothers of girls know, like any mothers of daughters know, it's a little bit of head to head sometimes, and like this fierce, fierce love and respect. And I think it was in that moment where Rowan understood for the first time what my job was, why it mattered so much, and like this just deep baseline respect we have for one another as women who do this work. And so Rowan, since that day, has never asked me, "Why do you have out your computer?" And I think for the first time, she truly understands that I took on work that is so much bigger than me or her. And it's really part of the movement of what we believe should be true for all families. So I carry Rowan with me, and she is my first mirror, the person who keeps me the most honest for how I show up every day, how I live through my values. When I come up short, I want to make sure that I deliver for her. And not just when I look myself in the mirror, but when I look at her, she can be proud of who she sees.
Your microphone's turned off.
I was talking to the hubby.
As you can see, your lips moving.
Uh-oh, what's going on? Did something kick off and I didn't intend for it to?
Could be.
Well, yeah, let me see. It's Jackie Latham, but we're not going to do anything else. It's up to you.
Hi, I'm Jackie Latham, and
It's up to you.
I don't have a bio for her.
Yeah, I don't either. So I've got several that we don't have bios for. That's why I was saying, because the only other bio that I have would have been Heather Kent.
We both have Heathers.
Yeah. So, but we can call it a day. It's almost 7 p.m. here.
Okay.
And we've been on sufficient amount of time. I think we've done well today, given all the interruptions with YouTube. Yeah.
Unfortunate.
So,
hopefully that will be worked out by tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. So any comments on Carmen's?
Yeah. Her dedication to children is really amazing. I love that they figured out that their middle school kids weren't where they needed to start, that they need to go back to the elementary school and start there so that when they got to middle school, they would no longer had the same challenge.
Yeah, because one thing about middle school is that they think they're halfway to adults and they have different attitudes once they start.
Yeah, they think they're squirrely.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
worked in middle school and high school during my time as an interpreter, and I used to say that they're really squirrely in middle school, and then their freshman year they're kind of squirrely still, and then by sophomore year they become human beings, and by the time they're seniors they're adults.
Oh yeah, exactly. And five is the most fifth grade is the most impressionable grade anyway.
I
It
think
really is. We
you're right.
discovered that when I was a Kiwanian
Yeah,
with Kiwanis, and we did dictionaries. We got all of those in the fifth grades dictionaries to use in school, and that was part of our fundraising effort to make sure they all had dictionaries, and then we would have spelling bees and just have all kind of fun with them
yeah.
because that is the most impressionable.
That's
There's
interesting because my favorite year of school was fifth grade,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
my daughter did extremely well in fifth grade. I'm like, when she went through it, I thought, oh, this is interesting. The same age she's come to figure out education.
Mm-hmm,
In
mm-hmm,
sixth grade,
mm-hmm.
we both figured out education.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is the most impressionable. Okay, so you want to close us out and
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you can pick up some um, nuggets of information from these wonderful speakers that we've heard today. We look forward to you joining us again tomorrow to Herstory Circle. And with that, we wish you a good evening.
okay. Good evening, good morning, or
Howdy.
good night, wherever you are in this wonderful world of ours.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All righty. See you tomorrow.
Did you going to stop the recording?
I'm going to stop the broadcast. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.